So I always recommend the chefs that come work for me, or other chefs that I talk to try to do new things, new menus, travel, get inspired, but just step out of your comfort zone and you can take some risks, you can do this.
This episode is brought to you by FultonFishMarket.com, the most trusted name in seafood. FultonFishMarket.com is the e-commerce provider for New York's iconic Fulton Fish Market, the largest seafood market in the Western Hemisphere, trusted by top chefs for over 200 years. Fulton Fish Market provides a range of world-class seafood options. FultonFishMarket.com can help you serve a wide range of customers, whether you serve high-profile individuals or just strive for culinary excellence. They deliver directly to your doorstep in all 48 contiguous states, providing a comprehensive selection of the finest seafood, from wild fish to caviar and shellfish. When it comes to seafood, FultonFishMarket.com is our go-to destination and the name we trust. Let's celebrate those who support us and dive into this episode of the Private Chef podcast with a taste of excellence and freshness. Visit www.fultonfishmarket.com to get 15% off your first order. Use code PrivateChef at checkout. Welcome to the Private Chef podcast, serving the 1%. I'm your host, Hennche, and on our show we speak to the best chefs, how they honed in on their skills to excel in the industry, and what it takes to work as a private chef for some of the most exclusive clients in the world.
Hello and welcome back to the Private Chef podcast. I'm your host, Hennche. I'm absolutely thrilled to have a very special guest with us today. We're joined by none other than Chef Ross Hutchison, an incredible, successful private chef based in Spain. Ross wears many hats, as he's not only the founder of the Private Chef Mallorca and the Chef's Table. Chef Ross has cooked up some amazing experience throughout his career, including working as a head chef on luxury super yachts, preparing delicious meals for some of the world's most well-known personalities, such as Catherine Zeta-Jones, Nelson Mandela, and Martha Stewart. He has also earned a well-deserved spot in the Mallorca 2022 edition as one of the 50th most interesting people in Mallorca. Quite an accomplishment. Be inspired by his incredible journey and again some valuable insights to become a successful chef. Welcome to the show, Ross.
Hello. It's a pleasure to be here, meeting you for the first time. So it's great.
Yeah, likewise. And the funny thing is, both of us kind of in love with the island. I came from the island or left it rather, just around when you arrived. So where did your culinary love for the island come from? What brought you there? What kept you there?
Well, what brought me here was a little chance. I guess I'm from Texas originally, and I trained as a chef in Texas. Gave up my dreams of being a chemical engineer and went straight into the best restaurant in my college town in Texas and learned everything I really needed to know from other chefs.
What was your college town?
My college was Texas A&M in College Station, Texas.
Oh, College Station. Yeah, I'm familiar with that. We actually looked at some real estate there, but that's a different conversation.
It's a very up and coming area, actually. So I always love cooking for people, whether it be friends or family. And this was right around the time when Jamie Oliver and all these TV personality chefs were gaining a lot of recognition. And I dreamed of being like them, And so I wanted to branch away from my training as a chemical engineer. So I just dropped everything and said, I want to go to culinary school. I didn't end up going to culinary school because I found out at the restaurant that I worked at that you didn't need to do this. You learned anything you could ever want in your life from other mentors. Yeah. And so that I stayed at that restaurant for 4 years and then eventually broke away, went to Seattle, New York City. And then I got an opportunity to work on a 60-meter super yacht in the Mediterranean. And that's when I first got this itch to leave America. Then fast forward a little bit, I came here in 2012 on another yacht. and fell in love with the island and just found a way to stay here.
So you and me just flipped seats. I came from Mallorca to New York, and you came to Mallorca.
Exactly. And so, yeah, in 2013, I set up Private Chef Mallorca. And yeah, the rest is history. I'm sure we'll talk about more of that later.
That's so cool. 10 years in the making. You know, you spent such a significant part of your life in Mallorca. How did you feel like it was for somebody from abroad to establish a chef business that serves high-profile clients in a country that speaks another language, you know, just different laws, different lay of the land? What was that process like for you?
Very slow. Everything in the government here is slow. Getting your ID, getting your certification, your insurances, everything. But you just deal with it. You just take it in stride. And one of the best things about being a chef is that food is universal. You don't really need to impress people with your language skills. You don't need to learn Spanish to be able to cook. One of the first things I got as a chef in Spain was a Spanish cookbook, and that actually taught me, you know, the basics of the language in chef terms, right? So I could go to the markets and order lubina. I could order caparoj, scorpion fish. I could talk to these fishmongers and the market stall operators and just do what I do. Just buy food and transform it into magical things. That's what a chef does. So that entry barrier was low. Yeah, the getting to know people here on this island is very difficult because it's just another world. And so, but being a chef is also a nice entry point, a nice icebreaker into conversation because, again, everybody relates back to food, what their grandma cooks, what their family has for Sunday suppers, you know, things like this. So it was a blessing to be a chef here.
Yeah. One of the things I also initially noticed is that the locals are a little bit hesitant to open their heart and their homes to you initially because they think you're just another tourist or you're just another seasonal workers. So, you know, you have to build that trust with them and show them, hey, no, I'm also here all year long. I'm also here in the winter. You know, I'm actually somebody who sticks around. That's something that I learned kind of in the first season. People were a bit hesitant to build more genuine relationships because, you know, there's like 10 million tourists a year on the small island.
Right. Yeah, the island has a history of being invaded over the last centuries, right? And being an island, you always have, like you said, foreigners coming out, extranjeros, like me. Yeah. And I think the best way to deal with that and the best way I dealt with it was just take it one day by day and meet quality people, people that already are chefs here, already know people. And so one of the first chefs I met here was a Swedish chef. So he has the experience of coming as a foreigner as well, but he started 15 years before me. So I met him and he kind of showed me the ropes. He actually hired me for a few jobs and that gave me the motivation and inspiration. I still remember the first like paycheck, right, that I got from him. It was cash, you know, but it was still like the feeling that, okay, this is a start. And this is in 2012 in maybe May. I got this opportunity to work for him and it was amazing. It was incredible. It was exactly what I wanted to do. And it just felt real. And it felt like I was going to make a difference, you know, eventually. And that just jump-started my motivation. About the island being very hard to get to know people, it is true. But if you just, I think also I smile a lot. And so if you smile, people they can't be mad at you. They can't be like, he's just here to take advantage of everything that Mallorca has. It's beautiful, good weather, good food. But he smiles. He's happy. So let's give him a chance.
I like that. And it's probably true. Like it's a lot harder to be mad at somebody or, you know, who genuinely smiles a lot, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. But also part of, you know, that the island is being invaded is the customer pool that you and me work for. Like part of the reason that we were able to cook the way at Tristan is because of the beauty of the island. It attracts a certain kind of clientele, and that's the same kind of clientele that you're working for, which, it's as you said earlier, it kind of makes it easier to have a private chef business on the island because of the influx of people who appreciate the island. And you have a certain kind of clientele. They come back every year, actually many of them. I mean, there's a lot of Germans who have secondary homes on the island, and then they fly there all the time. And the same is true for a lot of European nations like the UK, France. There's so many people who appreciate the island for its features, the weather, all potential customers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's one thing that I've noticed over the last 11 years, the shift in client base. It used to be a lot of German and English. It still is for the most part, but Swedish, Scandinavians have been coming more often, Norwegians. The Russians came for like a year. And then I notice all these things because I get the emails, I see where they're from. And that leads me into not generalizing about a person based off of where they come from, but like it leads me to go down the wrong direction, the wrong hole, the wrong rabbit hole. Because if you start doing that, you start like trying to fit a mold and trying to attract a certain audience. And I've learned here that you just have to cook what you want, what you feel is best for you. And the clients will come, the guests will come to your table. And sometimes you have to educate them as well, like what it entails to be a private chef, what kind of service we provide. Because in 2012, when I got here, it's quite common to have a private chef. I was probably 3 or 4 chefs on the island that went the private route. And now, after COVID just exposed the world to staying at home. And what do you need to do while you're at home? You need to have a nice meal. You need to have fancy meals. You need to have a birthday celebration. And so I've seen a huge growth over the last 3 years after COVID. And before, it was very much like you didn't really know where you fit into the mold of being a private chef here in Mallorca. You're not exactly a restaurant, but you do everything a restaurant does. And so you need to always be authentic as being a chef, especially here, because people are coming to Mallorca for the sun, the climate, the food, and they're going to get the Spanish food, when they're here. But I don't cook Spanish style. I cook my style. And
how would you describe your style? I mean, you have a beautiful Instagram, but how would you describe it if I were a potential client?
My style is based off of obviously using the seasons for cooking, but also telling a story through the food and finding one element of a dish that you can highlight, especially when you're presenting it to somebody. So it's not just about cooking per se; it's about an experience when you're talking about like being authentic. It's storytelling, having a reason that separates you from the other chefs is what I found through highlighting a story of a food. I created a dish, maybe 5-6 years ago. Many people have done it. I'm sure many people before me did it too, but I found a reason to make this dish and a reason to use the food from Mallorca in my final product. And it was a prawn dish, and prawns here in Mallorca are well known. The soya gambas are historically, they're kept colder. Like they're just like any other really nice red prawn from the Mediterranean, but they have a history here in Mallorca of being the freshest. And so I know that, everyone else knows that. And so I take the soya gambas, I make a Carpaccio out of it. And Carpaccio is an Italian name, and it comes from a painter, Vittore Carpaccio. And I was like, okay, how can I tell a story with this food instead of just saying, okay, here's my my prawn Carpaccio served with citronette sauce and a little maracuya, passion fruit, and avocado. how can I tell a story? So every time I serve this dish, I tell a story about how it reminisces of the dish that was the original intention of Carpaccio from Harry's bar in Venice, Italy. I forget the year, but a long time ago. He created this dish from raw beef, of course, and it had a sauce. That was all they could find at the time, and this dish became a hit. And so he named it Carpaccio after the painter because it had the colors of reds and whites and yellows in the dish. And the painter always paint with these colors too. That's what he was known for. He was known for his really nice tones of red and balance with the ethereal white qualities. And so I tell this to my guests, and they're like blown away. They're like, what? What did I just hear? And then they're just like looking at it and they're like, oh my God, I'm getting more than just food. I'm not getting my first course, my starter. I'm getting a little story. And I'm going to Google who this painter is right now. And I'm going to talk to people about art now. It's like, you just kind of have to develop your repertoire around being interesting, right? And standing out from the crowd. I think that's primarily why I like doing it.
I think what you just said is so spot on, and it's something that I did 100% wrong in the beginning. I used to be a guy who just drops the food, and I could tell that people were lacking something, and even so they might appreciate the food, there's many people who appreciate the story, and you kind of have to you have to weave that story for them and give them something that they sells them on the dish, and you have to do that even as a private chef over and over every day. Like, people want to walk into the kitchen and be like, chefs, what's cooking? And that you don't just say, like what I used to do is like beef, and that maybe I give them the cut, like beef ribeye, and you have to be, as you said earlier, maybe the sales guy or have that story. And, you don't need to sell them on that dinner, but you want to make it appetizing for them and get them like already excited, and then
getting them ready to eat it. Like, oh, I'm so excited. Stop talking. I'm going to dive into this food now.
Yeah. And there's something that I only understood later. There's actually an entire psychology behind it. Like Andrew Huberman has a great podcast about dopamine release and stuff. And there's basically science to it, why you should do that in order to have more happy clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. It's smart because they remember you. It's about, I think one of my missions is to create memories, to create food memories. And I know it's very cliche, right? But how do you do that? You can cook really well. You can study every cuisine known to man, right? And you have thousands of things that you can make, but what do you want to get across? What is your message? Like, I'm sitting next to this because I just found it in the market.
Yeah.
It's a pumpkin. And I'm going to make a dish on Sunday. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but it's going to be vegan because I have a vegan guest coming to the dinner, and I'm going to use this. That's it. And I'm going to tell them that I found this pumpkin in the market and I created a dish for them. And they take away something that you cannot replicate with just knowing how to cook. If you know how to cook that pumpkin, that's fine. But if you tell a story specifically to one person, that just made their night. They'll always remember that. They'll be like, oh my God, this chef just made me something. I feel so spoiled, so taken care of, so important. And one of the things that I know is very paramount to being a private chef is always treating every job like it's your only job of the season, because you make that guest feel so special, like she's the only one you've ever cooked for in your life. Obviously it's not, but that's the feeling that they take away from it. Like, wow, I had this experience with this chef.
I think that also translates into, if you have, let's say you only have one client, they still want to feel like that. They want to feel that you're invested into their home, and that you don't think about, okay, now I served the last dish and I'm out of here. Thank you for nothing. They want to feel like, you give them that feeling on an ongoing basis. And I think that makes for longevity with chefs in general, where they can create experiences on an ongoing basis where people feel taken care of, in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's difficult. I will say it's difficult especially when you're in a busy season. Like Mallorca is very seasonal, and so my job really starts. I mean, it's year round. I do things year round, but here in Mallorca, it starts in April. Then May kicks off. May is so busy. June, July, busy. Then you get into like the hot months of August, and you're slow. You're like, oh God, you're still busy though. And this is when you need to remember that the client is coming here maybe one time. They're coming from Australia to Mallorca for one time in their life, right?
Yeah.
And they've you to be their private chef. This is important. And so, it also separates being a private chef in Mallorca versus being a private chef in, let's say, New York City or a big city where you have a constant pool of repeat clients too.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure being a chef in one of these bigger cities, you have 5 clients or 10 clients that you cook for on a constant basis. And it just like keeps going. And you build a rapport with them. Here, we're very transient. And so people come here on a holiday for one time, maybe every 4 years. And they want a really nice, memorable meal. And so you have to remember that, during all of your other things, remember like how to cook and how to use this recipe and where your provisions are coming from and, who's your waitress and everything else. It's very important just to stay focused, right?
Well, one of the things that I appreciate about the island, it's very manageable. Like I always used to say that you can drive anywhere in an hour,
Yes.
So it's like in that sense, it's very perfect because you can map things out, and I mean, there's the traffic patterns allow you to navigate the island well, I would say.
Yeah, when you left though, it was fine. Now traffic is horrible.
Okay.
So if I'm looking to leave for a job, I need to be out of here by about 5:00 or else I get into the serious traffic. And then, we'll see. It's just about timing. And the island is super big but it is manageable. And you're right. It takes you an hour to get from east to west. And that's also a thing that I like to not think about the job as, it's a close job or a far job. It's just this experience. Like I have fun actually driving to an event. Gives me goosebumps while I'm in the car. I'm like, I'm going in this car now for an hour. I listen to music. I get pumped up. To Dea or to Valdemosa, to Soller, to Poyensa, all the way in the north, over to Arta or the east coast of the island. I had a wedding there for 12 people, right? It was a very small wedding. I got there. This is maybe a couple months ago. I arrived there, don't know the house. This is actually a funny story. I forgot to book my waitress for this day. This is like one of the only times I messed up with this. And the waitress found me somebody else. The waitress ended up being in the north of Spain. And I was like, you're joking, right? We have a job tonight. And she was like, no. I'm in the north of Spain, but I'll find you somebody. So I went and picked up a waiter, drove an hour to this job, feeling very confident that everything was going to get done and everything was going to be fine. And it was, but it took some time to get used to the apartment. The apartment was like very small. Outside was super tiny for the 15 people they had. And so it's not just about cooking a meal. It's about logistics. And you arrive and the groom meets you and he's about to get in his tux and you're like, oh my God, I'm at a wedding. And this is not happening. We need to figure out the table situation and everything like that. And you just bust it and you do it and it works out. Everything usually works out.
Yeah, I think that's also part of the magic, and where you just have to pull things together and, ideally it's all perfect, but then also sometimes you still create an experience and only you knew that, okay, maybe this part I didn't get to,
Right, exactly.
Unless it's something very obvious, like you didn't set the table properly or something. Right. Or you forgot to bring the waiter.
Forget to bring a waiter. That wouldn't have been good. Like if you forget a sauce or you forget a garnish or something like that, the guests aren't going to know. And you take it personally. You're like, oh man, it would have tasted so much better if that gremolata was on there.
Sometimes when the kitchen, when I'm not used to it and I put something, I don't know, in an oven that's a little bit off my center part of the kitchen, and then I start plating and I'm like, I'll get to that. It gets on top of the dish. And then I send out the dish and then my cleaning, I'm like, I found something here, I keep joking, there's like that one thing for every dinner, something small.
Well, what do you do? Well, what do you do in that situation? Do you just act like it didn't happen?
Well, it's already over. Like the meal is, you already served. And it's like what you said, like, this would have rounded up the meal. It's not that I forget the filet mignon on top of the plate or something.
Right. Well, this leads me to one thing that I remember. One of my main clients that comes here from Switzerland every year, he books me for maybe 6 weeks during the summer. And every night it's a different meal, different experience, different cuisine. We repeat every now and then some dishes because they're the favorites of them, but I try to do everything new. Last night of the summer, I'm making something very easy, crêpe Suzette. Every chef knows how to make it. Yeah, flambe some orange juice with some sugar and some crepes, right? And then put some ice cream on it. I got to the table, presented my dish, felt super accomplished. This 6 week stretch was over. This last night with the clients, amazing dinner, beef before, starter of like a prawn cocktail, something. And then the guests start eating it and they're like, oh, Ross, what is this? And I was like, I don't know. So I taste it. It's salt. I use salt instead of sugar.
Oh, man.
Like salt. Have you ever had salted orange juice? No, because it's horrible. So they looked at me like they're all gagging at the table, kind of hysterically, because they know me. I messed up, right? And they're just laughing and also like can't keep a straight face and everything. And I'm like, okay, guys, sorry, I'm going to go do this again. So at that point, you cannot hide your mistakes.
Yeah.
So you actually, have to just.
The same thing happened to me once. I don't remember the exact instance, but I remember one of my main clients, I used to work with them for 2 years. I served them some, so it was also an extended relationship. And she was just looking at me like, Hannes, what did you do here? Like there's salt in the dessert.
Yeah. If salt and sweet things. One of my chefs also put salt in the glue wine. He was doing a glue wine for an Austrian couple, and he put salt in it. And he wrote me a text message saying, "I fucked up, Ross. I fucked up." I was like, "What did you do? Like, did you forget the beef, or like what do you mean?" And he's like, "I put salt in glue wine."
But did he taste it before you served it? I mean, that would be something you taste definitely before you serve it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if he tasted it. He knew how to make it. He made it. He just went through the motions and served it. Yeah, that was like something, quite obvious that you can't kind of go backwards and say, I have a couple other bottles of wine, I can start over. You can't really start over. But I still have that client. Client booked me this year, and we still talk about that. So you use this as kind of like your story between them and you. It's a relationship now, because of course, all good relationships and all strong relationships, there is some sort of tension and problems, right? Then you solve those problems, you move on, and you still have the core aspect of being a good chef and a good person to have in their home, good conversationalist, and they know you are only human.
Yeah. Ideally, they allow room for being human at times.
Right.
Some who don't. But I think the sustainable relationships realize that there's also a human aspect to every chef.
Yes.
Let me ask you one technical question. What was it like to immigrate from the United States to Europe or Spain in particular?
Well, I don't want to go into it too much, but I had a loophole. I got a residence card through a marriage. So,
okay. Because I only know the process one way, so I'm always wondering what is it like to immigrate to Europe? What are the hurdles if somebody wanted to touch base here and work? It's difficult.
As an American coming here, you have to have a very good reason, and you have to have a visa, or you have to have a contract with a company that vouches for you and puts up the work visa for you. Then
so was that the case on the first 60-meter yacht that you mentioned? You first had the basically work contract in place, or at that point you were already married?
I was in a work contract base. Yeah.
Okay.
The yachts were work contract because you are basically a citizen of the world at that point, and you travel everywhere. You have a passport. As an American on a super yacht, though, you have to hope that the super yacht wants to pay your insurance. You have an extra insurance.
I heard about that. That Americans are basically, for a good reason. The insurance in general in the United States is off the charts compared to the rest of the world.
Yes, and that's what they look at. They know that Americans like to sue and like to litigate everything. I mean, we have the best series in the world about law offices, right? Suits and all that stuff. So it's well known that Americans are like that, or it could just fall into that. So super yachts do an extra set of protection. So I was lucky that my yacht was okay with that. And this is the 100-meter yacht that I was working on for.
What country was the yacht from? Also in terms of salaries, because coming from New York City, you're coming from like one of the best markets in terms of chef salaries. And then you're going into Europe, and I find that a tricky transition at times. I think if you go to Europe as a chef, you either go for experience or lifestyle, never really for the money, unless maybe Switzerland.
Yes, I've never worked in Europe as a chef at a restaurant. So I've only either been self-employed or working as a chef on a yacht. And the yacht salaries are high, because it's a different world, really. It's higher than what you could earn as a chef in New York City at sometimes. You'd have to be a head chef of a big restaurant in New York to earn the same amount that you could on a super yacht. You're talking about super yachts pay 14,000 euros for a chef for a month. And this is a year-round contract. And sometimes you get half the year off. I was lucky to have a rotation where I was time for time, which means I work a certain amount of time and I have that certain amount of time off. And I was on a rotation with another head chef. And so I was working 6 months, well, not continuously, but 6 weeks. And then I would have off 6 weeks, which enabled me to come back to Mallorca and do my business, keep it going. Yeah. That's one thing that I struggled with at times, being consistent here with my company, and at the same time earning very good money on a yacht thousands of miles away, cooking for, the yacht owner and his guests. I needed to find a solution. And so I started employing freelance chefs here in Mallorca to join my team. And so I taught them my menus. I taught them how to present, how to decorate the tables, how to work with the waitresses that I had set up too. And so that enabled me to keep my position on the boat and then also still work in Mallorca when I came back.
Sorry for the interruption, but we gotta share the news with you. Nothing fishy from FultonFishMarket.com. They're delivering world-class seafood from New York City's legendary Fulton Fish Market straight to your door. Their fishmongers have helped countless chefs get what they need when they need it for over 200 years. Trusting FultonFishMarket.com means their experts work tirelessly to make your day run smoothly. Let your cooking skills shine and elevate your dishes with amazing seafood from FultonFishMarket.com.
I would keep some clients. I wouldn't, because otherwise I was saying no all the time. No, I'm sorry, I'm busy. I'm already booked. I'm already booked.
Yeah.
But I was on a boat, so I had to figure out a way to say yes, and I figured that out.
I like that. I had to figure out a way how to say it. So the boat you were on, that was a European owner, or was it somebody from the US?
It was a Russian-owned boat, but it was
Russian.
most of these big yachts are flagged in the Cayman Islands,
Yeah.
or somewhere else for tax reasons. Cyprus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of bureaucracy and taxes at that point. But
I was surprised at the number you just threw out there, because based on the other conversations I had with European yacht chefs, that's the first time I heard something as high as 14,000 euro, and then also having that decent rotation.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, that's the high end of the spectrum, but it's definitely, the middle road is definitely in the upper thousands. 6,000 to 9,000 is normal.
That's more so the range that I keep hearing from.
But that is still higher than anything you could really earn at a restaurant here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't have it in my hand right now. It's upstairs. Otherwise, I would show it to you. I found my pay slip from Spain. So that's nearly 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And I made, working my ass off, like probably 70, 80 hours a week. I made 1,200 euros a month.
Mm-hmm.
And that's back then at one of the best restaurants on the island. But you know, you're bleeding your life away for no money. But the beauty in Mallorca was I still was able to afford a nice apartment where first I had an apartment which actually had a balcony overlooking the sea. And then I got an apartment in the close to the cathedral in Palma itself, in a really nice part of town there. But I was still able to have nice meals out on my days off. So the quality of life was still there despite making so little money.
Yeah. It's gotten a lot more expensive since, when you left in 2013, I was just starting here and it was still affordable. Everything was very affordable. Rents were a lot lower than they are now.
Yeah.
I don't know if the prices have increased to sustain that affordability, right? The quality of life, but I've been out of touch with that because I've just been doing my own thing and my own business and figuring out a way to get through things like COVID because it affected the private sector as well because no one could travel. And so during COVID, for example, I had 5 jobs that year, but I was lucky enough to have a couple clients that, like that one client that books me for 6 weeks, they still came to Mallorca. And for the most part, people were just afraid to travel and they wouldn't come to Mallorca. They wouldn't book a chef. You know, there's lots of cancellations, refunds, everything like that. It was difficult for all hospitality sectors across the board. But yeah, you just have to figure out a way.
Yeah, I could see how refund really hurts because you might have already used the money.
Yeah, well, you invest it in something like a kitchenware or new pots and pans. Your car, right? You have to get to the job. But no, I was very fortunate and very lucky. I've met a lot of people along the way of my journey of being a chef who have given me a lot of opportunity as well as trusted me, right? And wanted me to succeed. An example, a long time before COVID, I was at my restaurant in Texas training to be a chef. I had spent 4 years there learning everything that I could grasp, that was my first time cooking. 4 years later, I was really needing to move on. And this is the opportunity that brought me to Europe, basically. The head chef of the restaurant, the owner of the restaurant, saw me kind of like struggling to have any sense of direction after I left the restaurant. And he said, I've got an opportunity for you if you want it. You can go out to Europe and be a chef on a yacht that I used to work on 13 years ago. But this owner needs a chef for 2 months. And I recommended you. And so I'd be happy if you go. And I was like, I almost said no. I actually thought I wasn't cut out for it. I was like, I'm just a restaurant chef with 3-4 years of training. I'm not going to go out and cook for these rich people, like celebrities. And I heard stories of cooking for Denzel Washington on his old boat and everything. And I was like, I don't know, Chris. And Chris was like, no, you need to go. You're going. You're immediately going. I'm buying your plane ticket. You're going. And so that changed my life right there. If I hadn't had done that, I would have never met the guy, the owner of the boat that brought me to New York, that took me to California. I was basically his personal chef after impressing him while I was on the yacht. Yeah. And that enabled me to travel, as well as cook for all of the celebrities that he had on board. I met Martha Stewart, Michael Douglas, these points, Nelson Mandela, Bono. And, that aside, it just opened up a world that I had no idea existed. And I just embraced it and said yes. So a lot of my life has been about taking opportunities and saying yes to something that I was afraid of, and just going with it, knowing that it would be fine and okay, and it would actually make my life better.
Well, a good challenge makes you stretch, right? You can't feel ready. Then it has to feel like, I'm not sure. And then you jump into the cold water, you take the dive and you work your way through it.
Yeah, it's an adventure. So yeah, that was something that I've been fortunate to have a lot of the time through my chef career, is opportunities that come knocking right on my door and I don't turn them down. So yeah, it's quite that just leads you to excellence, because you will always strive to learn this new open water that you've ventured into. And when you start learning things for the first time, you start putting a lot of your love into it. And it becomes more important to you than just going through motions and motions over years and years and years. So I always recommend the chefs that come work for me, or other chefs that I talk to try to do new things, new menus, travel, get inspired, but just step out of your comfort zone, and you can take some risks, you can do this. So. Yeah.
And I can relate to what you said. Like in hindsight, I couldn't have mapped out my career, and it was a little bit like what you said. You have those, like my job in Spain, I got it through another sous chef who was like, "Hey, Hannes, I can totally plug you into Tristan," and he kind of described it. It was very similar, like like the chef that put you on the yacht. It was actually 1-to-1 almost. And I was like, okay, whatever. And then he introduced me to Tristan, and they were very happy to take me based on the experience I had previously, and off it went,
And then, you don't know where it's going to take you. And that's the exciting part. It's scary, but exciting at the same time. And it can only lead to better things, and you just don't know it at the time. You have no idea what's in store for your life after that.
That's true. I mean, I think that's true in general in life. You could, imagine what your life would have been like if you stayed in college.
Exactly. I would have been building pipes and chemical in some like Exxon or something like that, and like crashing systems.
You would be living in Houston, Texas now.
Living in Houston, Texas. I had planned, if I didn't do what I did, obviously, I probably would have gone to Austin before Austin was cool, right? Before it's like the new California. In 2005, no, when was it? I think 2007 is when I started, when I left my restaurant, Christopher's World Grill. And I talked to a friend of mine and I said, hey, I think I want to go to Austin and start a food truck. I want to do a food truck that, because food trucks weren't really popular at the time. They were just getting into the vernacular. And of course, in New York City, the big cities, they were already there. But in Texas, the only food trucks we had in Texas were the taco trucks that always went to where the construction sites were.
Or the barbecue trailers.
What?
Or some of those roadside barbecue trailers.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Barbecue is a thing. So I said, why don't I marry barbecue and tacos together and do like, I even had the name is going to be called Blues Tacos, and I was going to play blues music, serve tacos with barbecue inside. I think I could still do this. I could pull it off, but it's probably already been done. But yeah,
if you would have done it 2007, now you would be the OG truck in Austin.
Right.
You know, like.
Exactly. So yeah, life would have been completely different. But I'm happy here in Mallorca, and it's beautiful. It's sunny today, and I have a huge week ahead of me. We have 7 events next week, and a couple events each day, and it's nice. It's really good to end the season in October on a high note, because it's about the time when people start leaving the island or transitioning to a winter job or something like that, and the clients just stop coming. But it's really been a good year, and I have right now in my kitchen I have 2 chefs working with me, an assistant chef that is full-time working day to day in and out with me. And I have waitresses that I call at the moment. I plan, I schedule. It's just been a nice year. And this week is going to culminate in a wedding, a 2-day wedding from some American clients that are coming in. And I had a Zoom chat with them a few months ago when they were planning everything. And they're from Seattle. I know Seattle. I used to work there. I used to live there. And it's really cool when I get Americans to come to Mallorca and see the island. And I have this commonality with them. Even though I've been a long removed from the States, I still know what they want. I know how to speak to them. And I'm just excited to share with them everything that I've learned here. And everything, all my adventures in Mallorca, right, and in Europe, and the
beauty is they come and they relate to you based on your common heritage, and that you've been to Seattle. So there's like a different level of trust that you have as a vendor compared to everybody else in the market. Like you as their chef. And then you've also been in Mallorca long enough to have all of those really cool tips, relationships you can point them towards. Like, this is really worthwhile seeing, this is what you could do.
Yes.
You have all of those relationships. So it's like a perfect match for them.
Yeah, it's indispensable to have this knowledge about the island as well as being able to relate to them. And so it was a very easy, let's say, sale, right? I chatted with them. I told them, your food is going to be the best food you've ever had while traveling ever, And so just from the start, we had a good conversation.
Simple sales pitch, right? I'm simply going to make the best food you've ever had traveling.
Yeah. I've had the exact verbatim reviews, comments when I'm ending a night with guests. They say they've been in Europe for 2 weeks, traveling around Portugal, France, everywhere. And this meal was our most favorite meal. They didn't get into the details of why they like the food better than other things, but just everything all encompassing, the whole experience and the flavors of the food as well. But they said, it's just so nice and so refreshing to end our trip on a dinner like this. And that's what makes me, get off, right? Like, I love to hear feedback from my clients like that. And that's important, because then you're continuing in the right direction, and it just motivates you to keep going. And next year is going to come sooner than later. And let's prepare, let's change menus. Let's do this and that. This worked this year. I liked when I did this dish for a pop-up. Let me put it on my main menu. And then, you just start to create like you do at a Michelin restaurant, at a creative restaurant like, El Bulli back in its day. They did nothing but create. They didn't really do any like high sales of production. I saw an interview with Fran Adria the other day that he said production kitchen and creative kitchen are 2 separate things. And I thought about that, and I was like, wow, it's so easy when when it comes off the tongue, right? But to recognize. But when you think about it, it's very difficult to be creative and to have high margins, right? And produce and have a business and employ people. But if you step back and you separate those things and you find how creative cooking can push into your production kitchen, that's when the marriages come through, and that's when you have the revolutionary food. And you don't even have to tell your clients this; they just see it because you're flowing. Everything's going well, and you're just loving being a chef.
Yeah, I also feel like the more stress, at least for me, the more stressful everything gets and the circumstances. And I was actually just communicating with another chef who was considering a semi-house manager position. He's like, I've done this in the past, but I know that all these other tasks will make me think a certain way and it will take away from me being creative in the kitchen. So I'd rather not take these positions anymore. I would much rather focus on the core, which is the kitchen, and being creative as a chef to deliver a certain kind of meals.
Yeah. It's balance, really. And I see my front of the house is going shopping, ordering flowers, managing what's coming in, and seeing, constantly tasting the recipes that I put in place, years ago, seeing if they're okay. If they're still working, and you still have to be creative at the same time, and you still have to give this element of creativity to your guests. Otherwise, you're just another caterer. And that's when you can use the power of stories and your experience to highlight this food that normally is, you can turn over this food really quickly, right? You can just produce and produce and produce, but the stories that you tell about the food, that slows you back down, and that makes it real, and that kind of focuses why you enjoy being a private chef. It's really about the people too. You get energy off of the people, off of your clients, off of your guests, off of the little children that are eating your food that come into the kitchen, that help you decorate the cake and take the cake out to their mother. Like, that gives you chills. You're like, I'm part of their 35th birthday right now. And
I thought you're getting the chills because you're afraid they drop the cake. No, just kidding.
Yeah, for other reasons, yes. It's always crosses my mind. Should I let this 5-year-old carry the cake? I saw him earlier and he wasn't being a very good child.
Yeah. He'd be like, oops, Ross, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Do you have anything else?
And then you're like, very cool. Actually, yes, I do. And you have a whole nother cake.
Yeah.
That's how cool you handle those situations.
No, it's never happened before. I don't know what I would do in that situation.
I don't know. It's a tricky one. Because they will look at you and like, why did you give the cake to my 5-year-old?
Why would you give the cake to my kid? Yeah, exactly.
And it's not really that you can put it on the kid at that point. It's like,
no, that's always the bad thing. No, you have to take responsibility and just use the 5-second rule. Whatever doesn't touch the floor is still okay. It's fine.
And then you put it all in the piping bag.
Yes.
And you make a new dessert out of
it. So
flavor
one of the things
is still somewhat there.
We're keep talking about the creativity, and one of the things I enjoy about being a chef in Mallorca is having that time to be creative in the off season. And so in the off season here, it gets cold, but it's not too cold. Seasons change, obviously, your ingredients change, but also your time slows down. And you're not rushing to do things. You're not rushing around doing 2 events in a day. Maybe you have 1 event a week, or you have 2 events a week, and you can kind of take some time to think about what you want to do, what you want to experiment with, and just cook. And so in 2019, I got a kitchen, which I call the kitchen space, where I am now. And this is kind of it's obviously where I prepare most of my food for my caterings, my events. All the mise en place happens here, all the deliveries with flour, from my flour guy that I use, Stefan, in the East Coast, where I make how I make my sourdough bread. He comes in on a regular basis, drops things off. It's where everything happens, where I store all my product, where I have my ovens and my stoves and everything.
Yeah.
So it's working kitchen, but also it's my creative lab. And so one of the things that I started doing in 2019 is teaching. And so I used to work on a yacht from, 2014 to 2019. That's when I worked on the Madame Goo. And I got off in 2019 and I opened this kitchen as a way of having a hub and being able to have, well, two things, being able to produce food legally and cleanly, right? Instead of at my apartment kitchen. And then also as a way of being more professional and expanding and also being creative in my food, my developments. And so I started teaching yacht chefs, and it happened very organically. I always loved teaching and explaining why food works the way it does, the reactions between the elements, the sweet, the salty, the sour, all this stuff. And I said, what better way would it be to start hosting cooking classes here? And that's like right around the same time I had this idea. Someone, I read on Facebook, a comment, a thread, somebody looking to learn how to fillet fish. And I was like, okay, I can teach them how to fillet fish. That's fine. That's cool. Maybe this will be the start. And so I didn't think anything of it. I had her come in, charged her, like some menial funds just for the product and for my time. And yeah, it was great. It was amazing. Like, we had so much fun. And I used anything that I had in my fridges and my dry stores, and we just created food. And we learned I taught her how to do these steps to fillet fish perfectly. And then it just evolved into this creative outlet where I was teaching her way more than fish. I was teaching her foams, how to do ice filtration, how to do different techniques with mushrooms, how to dehydrate things, how to make, how to intensify stocks by dehydrating the vegetables in the oven first and then caramelizing them. And then it just went on. And so I said, I need to make this a thing. And so I started teaching yacht chefs how to be better yacht chefs, how to get ahead in the industry, how to learn more techniques, and like also culinary hacks that speed up the process of cooking something. And also how to excel their career faster. And so it's been going on for 4 years. And I started Chef Academy last year, early this year, and started really mainstreaming or like kind of honing in on what the fundamentals that you need to learn as a chef being on a yacht are. And then also doing very bespoke trainings where they come at me with anything they want to learn, like sauces. I want to be able to garnish really well. I want to be able to do sushi and ramen. So I was like, yes, we're going to do a course on that. And it was just so, like, it made me feel so happy to see these chefs take their trainings and the recipes that they wrote down and just the pictures that they took, and then send me food back that they were cooking on the boat now. And saying their owners of the boat, the owners, the guests, the clients, loved the food, is so happy with the new gluten-free pizza recipe. Oh my God. And so it's just really a nice way to balance the seasonal, Private Chef Mallorca work where you are on all the time doing private events everywhere around the island and need to coordinate everything. Being able to step back and just work one-on-one like it used to be in a kitchen, like where, you had training and Tristan, and before that, like you learn one-on-one, seeing the motions of people's hands, tasting what other people have made right in front of you and saying, oh, wow, I would have never thought that acid could do that with the sugar or with the searing of the zucchini, like how that can change the flavor of this dish. And that's where you learn a lot. So I'm super happy to keep offering that to people and learning as well when my students come in to teach me things too.
Yeah. And I had the same experience with the off season. It's like the perfect time to do all of these things. You decompress from the season. I think that's part of the beauty in the Mediterranean, that you have that, and that the kind of the focus of tourists, they're going to different places. So you have time to be creative and also to enjoy life on your own terms a little bit. Mm-hmm. And as you said, the weather isn't that cold. you can still enjoy the island, you can take bike rides and be creative, meet farmers, build relationships throughout the
Yes.
winter that then, you can re-engage with in the summer.
Yeah, that's when you start thinking about who can I call, who did I see during the season that I wasn't too busy with, or that I was busy then to sit down and have a conversation with. Maybe I can get a new product. That's when I started getting my organic flour from this farmer in the East Coast to make my sourdough breads.
Yeah.
I saw something that he was doing online, and I said, I need to go meet this guy. I went out to his fields and saw everything from the ground up. And now that was 3 years ago in the off season. And now he's selling to all restaurants, all bakeries. He's doing such good work. And it's really nice to be able to connect to these people that are the fundamentals of cooking.
I remember a couple of years ago, I went to Italy in the off season, and there was so the guy had a biodynamic vineyard, and then in the season he would go for truffles too. And he was so bored out of his mind when I knocked at his door, because it was off season. There was nothing to do with the vineyard. It wasn't truffle season yet. He was so happy I knocked at his door. He spent the whole afternoon with me, explaining me all about his work. We were drinking wine, just sitting there. So I think it's actually in the off season where you can build real relationships and also drive that creative part. And it's in relationships where you can really deepen something for the future, and just like you said, you did with the flour guy.
Yeah. It just sets the groundworks for the next year, and just learning what is available. Like sometimes as chefs, we're very busy in putting food on the plate, and you don't step back and say, okay, what's the bigger picture of actually cooking? Where am I getting my product from? Who can provide me with better things? And so that's the time that allows you.
Man, we used to have this specialty tomato farmer, and he was located in the northeast part, and the tomatoes he brought us were world class, man. And it was actually one of the earlier times. Obviously, there was also Comedo tomatoes, but he was bringing some of those more heirlooms before it was a thing.
Right.
When I haven't seen it in Germany before that. And then when we came here, the guy brought in all of those different and amazing tasting tomatoes.
And then it changes your perception on what you want to offer your clients or what you want to put on your next menu. It inspires you to create a menu solely off of tomatoes. And you can do tomatoes thousands of different ways. And then you're like, I'm going to use this tomato until people don't want me to cook with tomatoes anymore. Because it's good.
And what I really appreciated in Spain too is that the price point of simple but amazing products, whether it's a bottle of red wine or a bottle of olive oil or fresh olives, you can get this really good product at a reasonable price point, which for me as an individual also, I felt like it enhanced my personal quality of life, but also as a restaurant, it allows you to just create amazing food. And I think that's part of the culture is you can go to a lot of different small basic restaurants and get really good bread, really good olives, really good olive oil. And they make basic tapas out of it, which just tastes so much better than anything that you get at many restaurants in New York.
Right. No, when I came over from the States, the vegetables were tasting better. The zucchini cooked over fire was amazing. And it just changed my outlook on, okay, it also kind of creates this challenge because the food is already better in its raw state. How are you going to put your value into this food to make it even better? And so it challenges a chef to transform the food into something where then the guests or the clients are like, okay, wow, this is something I've never seen before. And he really made this, he or she harnessed the capabilities of this tomato, right? That's fine on its own, but he made this into something magical, or I've never seen this before. And that's where you get to be challenged as a chef too.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, Chef Ross, where can people connect with you, find you, whether it's for the Chef Academy or, just throughout the season, if they're busy and they would like to have a chef that takes away stress out of their daily life when they're at their finca?
Best way is to contact me on my website, chefrosshutchison.com or privatechefmallorca.com. They lead to the same place. And WhatsApp is surprisingly where I find I do a lot of my connections with potential clients, potential other chefs that I want to work with. And yeah, my number's somewhere on there. I have a WhatsApp on my website, and I found it's quick. Emails are still the base, right? You still want to email somebody. But WhatsApp is just instantaneous, and I respond immediately. I'm just like, hey, I'm at an event. I'll write you back this evening. And I write him back with an offer, everything, and it gets booked within the next day. It's super good, valuable tool is WhatsApp. So yeah,
I think you got a point there, because people want that immediate response, even if it's just like, hey, you're acknowledged, you're heard, and this is not an automated message. I'm getting back to you tonight. Yeah,
exactly. Right. I hate automated messages. I don't like them. I'm against this AI coming out with like, I'm your automated. I'm Sally. I'll be dealing with you today. How can I help you? And I'm like, no, I just want to talk to the owner of the company.
Well, I guess it depends. Like, let's say I'm calling American Express because I have an issue with one of my chargers. I don't really care whether I talk to a computer or not, as long as it gets resolved.
Exactly.
But if I call Chef Ross because I want to plan my wedding, I want to speak to the chef, not some AI Sally.
Exactly. AI Sally is not going to lead me to where I want to be. Yes, you're completely right. There are perfect implementations of AI, right? But not in the direct food world with being a private chef. But
I also feel like that, I might be wrong, but the private chef part of chefing will be one of the last to be replaced by automation and AI.
Yes,
because it's an experience, and like you're a person that genuinely loves, and there is an experience to that, and you tell a story, and obviously AI will get to the point where it could do all of that in a fake way to be like the most perfect human being for that situation. Right. But I think that sense of human connection, and actually also maybe the ability that there could be human or error, will be appreciated when there's a real setting where there's emotion, and it's not just a transaction, like, I don't know, maybe going to a more simpler restaurant where robots are already being deployed now.
Exactly. Yeah, I've fully embraced this, and I think that's why I tend to embellish my storytelling so much more, is because I know that I'm up against a lot of competition with restaurants, Glovo, like instantaneous food coming to your doorstep whenever you want it. I'm still in competition as a chef for these products. And AI is going to change the world when it comes to food too. But what you need to do is what I said at the beginning of this podcast, is separate yourself. And the only way you can do that as being a human is retaining that humanality of all of us. And we love stories. We love listening to people explain why this food is important to them. You're never going to get that replication with robotics. They can make burgers for you, yes, but you're never going to have that interaction as a human being and laugh and tell stories or empathize with other people, or have the errors, like you said, and have something as silly as putting salt instead of sugar to be an icebreaker at an event, as cracking the table up and making you just human, right? So I do love to always highlight a certain item of my dish and tell a story of it, and just relate to the people. It just gives me better feeling of what I'm doing and why I'm placed here, right? Why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, I love that. And I think this is a great place to wrap it up. Thank you so much for your time, and being here with us today, sharing everything, and, speaking about the island that we both love and appreciate for its culinary diversity and where it's located in the world.
Yes, it's a great place to be. So come visit sometime.
I'll be back.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, FultonFishMarket.com, the best seafood in the nation, trusted by the best chefs in the world. Aside from offering premium seafood, they also make life easier for you by delivering all these outstanding products right to your doorstep. Visit the official website www.fultonfishmarket.com and explore their incredible selection of seafood and let your clients experience quality that has captivated palates for generations. Use code Private Chef at checkout to get 15% of your first order. When it comes to seafood, FultonFishMarket.com is the name we trust. Thank you for joining us at the Private Chef podcast. If you know any highly skilled chefs that want to take their life to the next level, make sure to share this podcast with them. And if you enjoyed this episode, click subscribe and check out our upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening.